No, thank you. Sleepy. Come back in an hour.
Need sleepy.
Please go away. Let me sleep for the love of God!
It's now time for the Billy C. Morning Show, part of the Billy C. Boxing Network. Interact with the show at BillyCBoxing.com.
And we're coming to you live, blah, 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 on this Halloween. I'm dressed like a New York Jet football player. Imagine that. There's no such thing. Today's show, well, let me rephrase that. We're coming to you live from the Billy C. Studios on Lake George, in Lake George, New York. I'm Bill Caligero. See, the spooky. I'm Bill Caligero. And it's time for the Billy C. Morning Show. Good morning, everybody. How you doing today on this Halloween? Like I saw a commercial, Halloween ain't home. But anyway, today's show is being brought to you in part by Sal's Neighborhood Pizzeria, an Italian restaurant located in St. Simons Island, Georgia. Check out the website, www.salsneighborhoodpizzeria.com, or give my man a call, 912-268-2328, 912-268-2328. Don't forget, if you're heading south for the winter, because you're a snowbird, don't forget it's 15 minutes out your way. That includes stopping for a couple of lights to sit down and enjoy a great meal at Sal's. And trust me, you won't regret it. It will become a regular stop. Mention the show and get a free cannoli with your meal. And for all the information, directions, address, all that stuff, check out the website, www.salsneighborhoodpizzeria.com, or just drop me an email, billy@talkinboxing, TALKINBOXING.com, and I'll give you the directions. Today's show is also being brought to us in part by my book. Tom Molyneux, From Bondage to Baddest Man on the Planet, is available right now where all good books are sold, and you can literally get a copy of it right now by visiting barnesandnoble.com or amazon.com. Now, if you want the digital versions, check out Kindle or Nook. It's available. And if you're looking to get a signed copy, well, I got two options for you. One, you can go to the website, www.billycboxing.com, and click on the book club section. Or the second option is this Saturday coming up. Oh, I'm sorry, this Sunday coming up. You can stop by the Queensbury Hotel in Glens Falls, New York. I will be there along with many other authors. There's a book fair going on, and I'm going to be there with my book, Talking Boxing, and signing copies and selling the Tom Molyneux, From Bondage to Baddest Man on the Planet, at a discount price. So if you're in the area, maybe checking out the leaves, stop by the Queensbury Hotel from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. I'll be there, and I hope to see you there as well. And even if you don't buy a book, come on by and talk some boxing. But anyway, coming up in a little bit, we're going to talk about Juan Lopez stopping his grudge match between Wilfredo Vasquez Jr. This week's Blast from the Past will be featuring former world heavyweight champ and boxing Hall of Famer Gene Tunney, an almost forgotten guy. And by the way, programming note, we will not be doing a live show tomorrow, but we will be here the rest of the week. We are scheduled to have a wrestling Hall of Famer, J.R. Ross, joining us on Friday. So anyway, we got Manny Pacquiao. I got some quotes from him. He's not taking Jessie Vargas lightly. Demetrius Andrade, last week we were talking about him waiting for Jack Colque to sign the contract for the fight that was scheduled for this weekend. And then the truth really came out. I'm going to talk about why I feel Demetrius Boo-Boo Andrade made a terrible mistake with his choice of promoters because they've done nothing for this guy but screw up his career. I'll get to that a little bit later. Also, Lou DiBella has pulled the plug on all of his remaining shows in New York State based on that ridiculous law that they passed. And we got Dax Conan scheduled to join us in about a half hour or so to give us the scoop on some social media. But joining us right now is the man, the myth, the legend himself. He's not only a New Jersey Boxing Hall of Famer, but he's a Guinness Book of World Records. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, please welcome Sal Rocky Senecola. What's up, Sal?
Good morning and happy Halloween, Bill. I heard you say they want to bite your neck. Ah,
Blah,
oh.
blah, 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 blah. Hey, you know what?
Buh, buh, buh. Yeah.
I met this woman not too long ago, and she tells me, yeah, when I get hammered, I become a vampire. And I said, you become a vampire, right? I said, I got to hear this, right? She says, yeah, for some reason I get drunk and I start going up to people, I want to suck your blood, and I'm like, oh, that's nothing. She says, yeah, but one time I bit my best friend in the neck. She said to me, good thing that I knew you, because I would have had you arrested. I said, oh my God, this chick is a Looney Tune. But
I think
anyway,
you're gonna steer clear.
jeez, that's for sure. But hey, this fight that took place this past weekend, Juan Lopez knocks out Wilfredo Vasquez in the 11th round. It started off a little slow, but became an action-packed fight. Juan Lopez improved to 35-5 with 32 knockouts when he stopped Vasquez in the 11th round. Here's the thing. Juan Lopez had suffered some really serious defeats, and he came back and he fought. This was a grudge match. This card just fell apart. I mean, the co-main event and the co-main event both was scratched. One was scratched because the medicals weren't in place. I just don't understand how that happens when you have a high-profile fight and the promoters and the powers that be don't get all their ducks in a row, and we're not made aware of it till the day before the weigh-in. I mean, it's ridiculous. And then, I don't know if you saw the real fight, which took place between some of Vasquez's corner and Juan Lopez. I mean, that was kind of crazy.
I thought Lopez got rocked.
Yeah, he did. His toughest fight came against the corner. But what's your thoughts on all
He had
that?
a doubleheader.
What's your thoughts on that?
I don't know exactly what propelled that to take place, but looking at that last round, that last minute, anyway, there was some instance during that fight where you could see these guys did have a real grudge against each other, and but going after the corner or whatever, I mean, these are things that you're supposed to be somewhat disciplined enough to not even be pulled into, if you will, by an antagonist if the corner was actually antagonizing Lopez for some reason. But and looking at the fight, I looked at it over and over and over again. There were 15 unanswered punches that Lopez did land on Vasquez in that last flurry. And was Vasquez really that hurt? Can he have continued? I thought he probably could have, but whatever reason, 15 unanswered punches in today's world of boxing is not unheard of. A referee stopping a fight as he did. I don't know about that Cornerman fight. I think they're going to relook at that, and they're going to probably be talking to both parties of both camps afterwards if they not already have done so. Probably penalize someone on that level.
I think they should arrange a fight between Muanma and the corner guy, because
you go again.
That
might not be a bad idea. He said if Vasquez couldn't do it, maybe the cornerman can.
Exactly. Muanma wants to continue fighting. He feels that he's back in the mix, and I'm not so sure. I'm not so sure. But anyway, at the time of the stoppage, which was 2 minutes and 29 seconds of the 11th round, it's interesting scorecards. Lopez was ahead on two of the three scorecards by a point, 96-94, and the third one had it even, 95-95. So I think the scorecards were pretty accurate. It was a back-and-forth fight. But I feel bad for anyone that actually paid for that pay-per-view. It was a complete joke of a pay-per-view, and it's a shame that boxing, once again, fleeces its fans like no other sport. That was terrible, Sal.
Yeah, it was terrible. Again, you disappoint the fans, and how many times in the future, what's going to happen? Are fans going to keep coming back to the well? You pull the trigger on buying something, and it just doesn't pan out to be what it's supposed to be, and it's only a matter of time if unless you glutton for punishment. Hey, I got to ask you one opinion though. I looked at that fight, and in the 10th round, I saw a hard right, almost like a jab, followed by a left. They didn't call it a knockdown, but Vasquez did come forward and fall, I believe, as a result from that hard right jab, from Lopez. I think I could have scored that in a knockdown. What did you think?
I thought it was a punch. I mean, sometimes
I
these
thought it was a
guys,
punch.
yeah, sometimes these guys. Listen, even if, in my opinion, if a fighter is off balance, but the opponent connects with a punch, even though the fighter's
It's a
off balance,
knockdown.
it's a knockdown. I don't care if he's hurt or not. It's a knockdown. A lot of
No.
these guys just don't. They miss it. The referees miss it. Face it. The referees and judges in the sport today are terrible. Really.
Yeah, they're fallible, and a human element. It's always fallible. But yeah, I think I would have scored that a 10th round knockdown, a knockdown in the 10th, because all night long, closing that left eye of Vasquez was that powerful and stingy right jab that Lopez, after the third or fourth round, started finding a home for. Because in those early rounds, definitely Vasquez was dominant, coming to him and landing some good shots. You almost see like Lopez was not the matador, but he looked like he was biding his time. And I give him a lot of credit. Like you said, he's an older veteran. And he seized the moment, because Vasquez was definitely no slouch. This guy came to fight. He had a good heart and good intent with behind his punches. So, it was what it was. It is what it is.
I'll tell you what it is. What it is
I want to hear it.
Demetrius Andrade made a terrible mistake by re-signing with Joe DeGuardia and Artie Puello of Star Boxing and Banner Promotions, respectively. These two promoters. And the truth of the matter is this. Joe DeGuardia is a friend of mine, and I feel bad for getting ready to bash him, but I'm gonna. These two guys, the bottom line with this, Sal, is they're greedy. They've done really nothing for Demetrius Andrade except sign him and reach into his pockets. This is a guy that, in my opinion, could very well be the best junior middleweight in boxing today, and has never really gotten the opportunities because of these two jokers that he's got making the decisions for him. Last week we talked about Demetrius Andrade waiting for Jack Colque to sign the contract, because that was a press release that was sent out that was basically formed by Star Boxing / Banner Promotions. Then the truth came out over the weekend, and the bottom line is that Jack Colque had signed the contract as soon as the purse bid was awarded to his promoter, Team Sauerland, way back in August. The fight was scheduled for this weekend, and Andre did not sign it when he was supposed to, within 15 days. The WBA decided to give an extension to Team Andre, and this guy not only missed the extension, but never returned phone calls or anything. And it was reported that Dimitri's team, Joe DeGuardia and Artie Puello, was trying to secure a fight with Demetrius Andrade and the WBC and or WBO world champions while they had this contract in place for the WBA, ultimately trying to get a better deal financially for themselves, because obviously they get a piece of it. And at the end of the day, well, the WBA said forget about it, and the fight was canceled. Demetrius Andrade has no fight now at all. In my opinion, Sal, this was clearly the promoter's fault and greed with a capital G. What do you think?
Yeah, I tell you, hey, I'll back you on that one, Mr. Clairvoyant, with your little Nostradamus hat. I'll tell you what, you got that one pegged. I agree with you 100%. And it's a shame when you have politics and other issues coming in place and taking the place of over what is supposed to be putting together logistically a good competitive fight and just getting these guys in a ring. And as you said, a lot of times we think it's the fighter's fault on the surface, when really sometimes it's the promoters, managers, and whatever issues they cannot hammer out. But they should have done so by the extension dates, and everything else should have been the way it was, and it should have unfolded to be signed, sealed, and delivered. And
Greed.
It's not
Greed.
Greed. It's the greed.
That's
You find the two emotions, need and greed. Unfortunately, in boxing, a lot of it is the greed.
There's no need. It's greed. Manny Pacquiao. We've been talking about Manny Pacquiao. He's got a big fight coming up this weekend. We'll talk about it all during the week. But a lot of people are concerned with Manny Pacquiao taking Jessie Vargas lightly. We all know that he's looking forward to a possible rematch with Floyd Mayweather. He needs to get by Jessie Vargas first. A lot of word on the curb is that he's taking it lightly. He's looking ahead. He's got his political hat on, et cetera, et cetera. But over the weekend, he had a couple of quotes. He says, took extreme discipline to manage my time effectively, to balance my training camp and my senatorial duties. I feel good every day I was able to get in my training. Now, he's referring to his time in the Philippines because he just arrived in the States late last week. He says, I ran every morning and did my strength and conditioning. I work with Freddie every morning in the gym after work. There were some days when I would have to come in later than work because of my Senate schedule. But between the two jobs, I was averaging 14-hour days. Luckily, the gym was close to the Senate, so I didn't have to deal with the traffic. I have no real free time to be with my friends, which kind of sounds like he is not 100% there mentally. But anyway, he says that we have 3 different plans in place for Jessie Vargas. My first concern is for the fans, that the people who are going to watch this fight and pay for it will be happy and satisfied. I want this to be a fight for the fans to remember. I want to prove to them that I'm still one of the best pound-for-pound fighters in the world. I feel I still got a lot to prove. I'm not done with boxing. I will continue to keep fighting as long as I love the sport and the boxing still loves me. I don't feel old. I feel like I'm still 27. I do not underestimate Jessie Vargas. He's a good, strong champion. You cannot fight at this level and be successful by underestimating your opponent. What do you think of those quotes from Manny Pacquiao?
Well, to be completely honest, I can identify on some level with him. I never was in the Senate, but when I made my comeback fight, I trained for almost a year for that fight, and I had a business to also run. I had definitely people that were in place, including Max and Heather and everybody else that tried to make the fight in place for me. But it took off some of the strain. But I opened up every day, I closed the shop every day, and I trained every day. And I had 14 to 18-hour days. But I knew my priority. I knew what I had to do, and I got it done. And I think Pacquiao is a professional. He's a consummate professional. He's got the experience. So I agree with what he's saying. If he believes and he's living his words, then I feel confident he's going to come in to fight. He's going to come in to win because he's in a must-win situation. Because if there's no victory here, there's no other fight.
I think one of the biggest problems with the sport today is that too many of these boxers are part-time boxers and part-time doing something else. I'm sorry. Even though Manny Pacquiao, and no disrespect to you and your comeback fight, but Manny Pacquiao, he's at the upper echelon of the sport, and to be honest with you, he should be dedicating his time mentally and physically to the sport. To do 2 things at once, something's got to give. And although Manny Pacquiao, I'll give him credit, he's done this before. I don't know. He's in there tough with a young gun on Saturday night, so we'll have to wait and see. I got some emails. Let's get some emails out of the way. This one's from Jesse. He says, "Hey Billy, what's your thoughts on Joel Embiid of the 76ers? He missed almost 2 years with bad knees. He looks very fluid and runs well. I haven't had a chance to watch him play that much, but some clips that I did see, he does seem like he's got some movement, and maybe in his case those 2 years off, whereas some professional athletes would be rusty, maybe he needed that time for his legs to get better at the level that he needs them to be. I think that the season will spell out the answer for you, Jesse, because it's a long, grueling season on these guys in the NBA. So, after a handful of games, I don't think we can really make that call. Let's talk about it after the first of the year and see how he's doing from that point. But good point, good question. He says, I heard that Terence Crawford might face either Felix Diaz or Antonio Orozco. I like the Felix Diaz fight better because he's faced a tougher opposition. Antonio still needs more work against higher level opposition before he goes up against Terence Crawford. John Molina said he would like a fight against Terence, and that should be good as well. Hey, listen, they're talking about filling that December 10th date with Terence Crawford.
Yeah.
It's got to be a top fighter, and I think Felix Diaz would be a better choice because he's a little more well known. But Terence Crawford can't just go in there and pick a showcase fight, Sal. I mean, he did terrible with the pay-per-view when they tried to do that.
Yeah.
I think if he does take that date, he needs to do it against a real opponent. But then again, with all the restrictions in the state of New York, I wouldn't be surprised if we don't see another pro fight, boxing anyway, in the state of New York until sometime mid next year.
Well, that's when I first opened up with my quote, calling you the Nostradamus. You Nostradamus. You said that, and with that, here you go. You have a big promoter like DeBella canceling the shows, because of the insurance premiums and potential liability and everything else that you have to adhere to in the state of New York at this time. And I was also panning through some of the websites. I thought I saw that they were close to signing, if not already signing, that slot for December 10th, Crawford fighting Molina. I must have misread it. I don't know if it's signed, sealed, delivered yet. But
well, they're talking about now. You might have been confused. They're talking about Eric Molina fighting Anthony Joshua in the heavyweight division over in England. Remember, Anthony Joshua's got the date as well.
Yes.
So this particular one was not Eric Molina. He's talking about John Molina on this one. But anyway, he says, he goes on to say, Billy, I don't understand the Terry Flanagan versus Orlando Cruz fight set for November. Cruz is just not strong enough. That was something that they, and Coach is saying, can't they use the Turning Stone? They most certainly can, because the Turning Stone, even though it's in New York, is actually on the Native American Indian grounds, and they could use any of those Native American casinos because they do not fall under the state in which they're in. So good point by Coach in the chat room.
Good point, Coach. I like that.
Terry Flanagan against Orlando Cruz. It was something that we were going to talk about on Friday, but unfortunately we got hit with a snowstorm. Yes, you heard it right. A snowstorm knocked us out. Didn't have power until Saturday. But the truth of the matter is I hate that fight. Terry Flanagan. Listen, we all know Orlando Cruz is the first openly gay boxer, and he's done okay for himself, but he's a B-level. And I'm being kind. To be honest with you, I think Orlando Cruz is a C-level fighter, an ESPN-level fighter, max. Terry Flanagan is a world champion. To defend against Orlando Cruz, I know Orlando Cruz has won a couple of fights in a row here, but I wasn't too happy with that fight myself, Jesse. I'm just sick of these champions, so-called champions, fighting really easy opposition. I'm not discrediting Orlando Cruz, but this should not be a competitive fight, so I'm with you on that. He says, I read Eric Molina's pushing for the Joshua bout on December 10th. I like it, but he has no defense and doesn't punch enough. I think that's the one that you were referring to, Sal. But the truth of the matter is I don't like the fight. Eric Molina gave Deontay Wilder all kinds of trouble, but Deontay Wilder's a fraud. Anthony Joshua's not. Anthony Joshua was going to fight Vladimir Klitschko. I mean, how do you go from Vladimir Klitschko to Eric Molina? I guess they got to fill the date with someone. If we could get the Klitschko fight early in 2017, which they are talking about, then I'm okay with it. But if not, it's time for Anthony Joshua to move on with his career. I'm critical to guys like Deontay Wilder taking layups. I got to be equally critical to Anthony Joshua. I mean, he is a champion, and Eric Molina, let's be real. He gave Deontay Wilder all he could handle, but prior to that fight, who the hell was Eric Molina?
Well, you're absolutely right. That's true. And I am going back to the ESPN page. I did see Crawford Molina agree to December 10th title bout. It says unified junior welterweight world champion Terence Crawford is poised to defend his crown against contender John Molina Jr. after two sides agreed to December 10th. Possibly.
Yeah. Well, we'll see what happens. Here's an email for you and me. This is from Chris. And she's been a long-time fan. She says, hey, Billy C. and Sal.
It's Foul.
I didn't mean to. Hey, Billy C. and Sal.
My name's Al with an S in front of it. Thank you very much.
You got it, man. But do you guys watch other boxing on YouTube? If so, what's your favorite channels? I don't. I honestly do not. Nothing against any of them, except I don't like to put us in that same category. We are a show that's been around 13 years. We're a professional show. We're on radio and television. YouTube is just an added thing we do for you guys. So the answer to that question, at least for me, Christine, is no. I don't. What about you?
No, you know me, Bill. I just have the time to hone in with you and I being on the same page. So that answer is a no for me as well. You know, I just look at what's out, what's the top, and what we have to deal with on a daily basis in a fight game.
Yeah, no.
That's noted.
You know, and I want to apologize to Chris if it's not the same Christine I'm thinking of. If it's Chris and not Christine, you know, I apologize.
Yeah,
but in any event, I better move on to the next email. This one's from Joel, our man Joel. He says, "Hey Billy C, with the biggest event this weekend being Juan Manuel Lopez against Wilfredo Vasquez, what were your thoughts on Juanma's victory, and what were your and Sal's thoughts on the highlight of the pay-per-view when Juanma went after Vasquez cornerman and got hit clean twice by him? It seemed like a horrible pay-per-view with Jonathan Oquendo's co-feature being scrapped due to his opponent having an indefinite suspension and the rest of the card being filled with weak one-sided fights. I originally thought Vasquez had more left in the tank and he would KO Lopez, so I was real surprised by Lopez being the winner. I'm glad I avoided this pay-per-view even for $30. Where do you think Lopez can go from here? I wouldn't mind a fight finally with Yuriorkis Gamboa. What's your thoughts on that? Well, first of all, I'll give you my thoughts, and then Sal can give us his. I thought the fight was competitive. I certainly didn't think it was worth the pay-per-view. I didn't think it was worth the pay-per-view before all the other fights got scrapped off the card. As far as the cornerman nailing Juanma a couple of times, yeah, but the cornerman went after Juanma first. At least that's the way I saw it. As far as fighting with Gamboa, I like that. That would be an action-packed fight. Both of them are balls to the wall and try to go for the knockout. I think it would be an interesting fight. You know, I'm still a little concerned about Juanma Lopez. He took some savage beatings and knockout losses prior to this fight, and this was another war that he was in. So I think they really got to take a good, close, hard look at Juanma Lopez and make sure he's mentally fit to continue. Something just doesn't seem right with him. But what's your thoughts, Sal?
Well, you know, you got to be careful, and I agree. But, you know, what this latest email, what this fan has said and expressed is just what we're talking and worried about. Here's a good fan, a loyal fan, but they're discontent with the pay-per-view. Had they purchased this and stuff. So, you know, it's they're going to create some apprehension maybe in future purchases by people, you know, on that level of being a fan. You never know. But, no, the fight itself, Lopez and Vasquez and the aftermath with the cornerman, yeah, from what I could see as well, the cornerman did some provocation there, and who knows what the internal agitation was.
Coach is saying Lopez threw the first punch. I didn't see it, but
no, he might have thrown the first punch. I got to relook at that, but I know that
they were talking shit. They were talking shit to him.
Yeah, and you got a professional fighter in Lopez. You don't do that. You don't let words antagonize you and pull you into throwing your lethal hands.
No, exactly. I mean, if that was in the States, he probably would have been suspended. He probably would have had his purse withheld. I mean,
I'll look at that again because I'm not so sure. He could have been. I think maybe the corner tried to sucker punch him. I don't know.
Yeah, well,
I don't know. I'll look at it again.
They don't like each other. That's for sure. I got another email. This one's from Raheem, your main man. He says, "Hey Billy C,
I like all your fans.
It's Raheem. I know, I can see that. But anyway, he says, I'm excited for the fight of the year, Manny Pacquiao versus Jessie Vargas. This fight for me is exciting. My family will watch it, and I'm the only one who says Vargas will win. Pacquiao is more concerned with Mayweather, and he's overlooking Vargas, who's training very hard. He's in shape, and he has the eye of the tiger. I predict that Vargas will knock out Pacquiao because Vargas has great agility and is younger. The last time Pacquiao knocked out a fighter was Cotto, and he's lost that knockout power. Pacquiao punching power is now average. Youth versus old will win. And when Vargas wins, I hope Pacquiao can just concentrate on his politics because it's hard to box and be a politician. And he says, can you give me an update on Wilder? And do you believe the boxing conspiracies that Fury retired on purpose because he didn't want to fight the best heavyweights? Well, first and foremost, I hope you're right that Pacquiao and Vargas is the fight of the year. They got a couple of other tough fights to contend with, but I believe that Pacquiao has been training, and I do believe that he will not take Jessie Vargas lightly. This fight means too much. There's too much on the line for him, and a loss to Jessie Vargas would ultimately end the career of Manny Pacquiao, at least in my opinion. So, and I've seen Jessie Vargas fight several times. I just don't think he's got enough tools in the toolbox to beat Manny Pacquiao, even though Manny Pacquiao is not the same Manny Pacquiao. With that said, I do believe he still has the punching power. It's just that I think that some of his movement is slowed down a little bit, and I think he's also a little more concerned with getting hit. So he fights a little more cautiously. So I wouldn't be surprised if he knocks out Vargas. I wouldn't. But as far as he says, can you give me an update on Wilder? Listen, Tyson Fury, I said this before and I'll say it again. Tyson Fury is financially set for the rest of his life, even though unless he continues with this cocaine stuff. I think that he just lost interest. I think that he just figured he would call it a day at this point. I don't think he's afraid to fight anybody. With the way the landscape is in the sport of boxing today, the best don't fight the best. So I don't think Tyson Fury ran because he had to fight the best. Listen, Tyson Fury would have beaten Deontay Wilder. I do believe Klitschko would have beaten him in a rematch, but there's no super heavyweight out there that could destroy Tyson Fury. What do you think, Sal?
No, and I agree. I think that I was so looking forward to the Klitschko fight with that against him, and I was hoping for a victory by Klitschko. I'm not a big fan of Tyson Fury for a couple of reasons, but it is what it is, and hopefully he'll be retired and stay retired once he straightens out his act and comes back in. But no, I think it's time to turn a page.
Speaking of turning the page, I got some scores here and some other.
Oh,
sports.
yeah. I was looking for the Giant games. I was looking all over, but I realized they had a bye.
They did. You got to follow it a little more closely. But in the World Series, the Cubs, who haven't won in over 100 years, are on the brink of getting eliminated and losing the World Series. But they hung on last night and won 3-2 over the Indians to stay alive. Now, that was the third game in Chicago. So now the World Series moves back to Cleveland with the last two games, if it goes 2 more games, being played in Cleveland. The Indians do lead this series 3-2. So if the Cubs want to break the jinx, they got to win the next 2 in a row in Cleveland, which is going to be tough. I was rooting for the Cubs, which I still am rooting for the Cubs. But you know what? You can't deny the Indians, Sal. They're a good team, and they're showing it right now in the World Series. The odds to kick off the World Series before the first pitch of the first game was 8-1 in favor of the Cubs, and that's ultimately gone now. Obviously, the favorite to win it all is Cleveland, since they only got to win 1 more game. They got 2 more at home. The pressure's on the Cubbies here in the final 2 games. So we'll see what happens beginning tomorrow. Over in the NFL, in England, we had another game in England. The Redskins and the Bengals played to an overtime tie, 27-27. Some sporadic, entertaining plays in that game, but the England is really pushing for a pro team, Sal. I wonder how logistically that could work. I do like watching the games early in the morning here on the East Coast, but 27-27 overtime tie. The Chiefs beat the Colts 30-14. The Raiders keep on winning 30-24 over the Buccaneers. The Saints and the Seahawks in a tough game. The Saints came out on top. They seem to have turned their season around 25-20 over the Seahawks. The Texans beat the Lions 20-13. The Texans are quietly securing a top spot as we get closer to the playoffs. The Jets, despite Ryan Fitzpatrick having a less than stellar performance. I mean, he didn't throw an interception, but every one of his passes, Sal, is behind the guys, above the head, below, hitting the ground. I mean, this guy is just terrible. But the Jets held on to win 31-28 over the winless Browns. I mean, this goes to show you how bad the Jets are. They struggle to beat. They had to come from behind to beat the Browns, who haven't won a game yet this year. So 31-28, they hold on to win. The Patriots keep on winning. They beat the Buffalo Bills 41-25. And if you want to get Tom Brady pissed off, score against them and make the game close, and then they'll open it up. The Patriots look. The Patriots look like they're on their way. 41-25 over the Bills. The Panthers, they got back on the winning track. They beat the Cardinals 30-20. The Broncos and the Chargers had a interesting game. I watched most of that game. 27-19, the Broncos pulled that one out. The Falcons and the Packers, 33-32. Falcons win. The Packers just can't put it together this year, it seems, even though they were looking good at times during that game. And another overtime game, the late game, the Cowboys beat the Eagles 29-23 in overtime. We've had a bunch of overtime games already this year, Sal. Over in the NBA, the Clippers topped the Jazz 88-75. Warriors over the Suns 106-100. The Spurs beat the Heat 106-99. The Pistons topped the Bucks 98-83. Thunder 113, Lakers 96. The Grizzlies 112 over the Wizards 103, and the Rockets topped the Mavericks 93-92. There was also some NHL action last night. This is the only time of year where all the major sports are playing regular season games right now. I mean, baseball's in the World Series, but still, it's all happening now. Sabres topped the Jets 3-1. Even the Jets in the Hockey League suck. The Panthers over the Red Wings 5-2. The Flyers beat the Hurricanes 4-3. My Islanders beat the Maple Leafs 5-1. The Rangers topped the Lightning 6-1. The Blackhawks 3-0 over the Kings. The Senators topped the Oilers 2-0. And the Capitals beat the Flames, those Flames, 3-1 in NHL hockey. But that's what took place in the other sports. And I tell you, I just can't seem to get over the Demetrius Andrade and his promotional team shooting him in the foot. This guy, his career is going to be one that maybe a lot of people don't remember because of the greed of his team.
Yes, I hear you. And hey, this is going to be something we got to keep our eyes on. But it's a shame because it all unravels and falls apart rather quickly when you have greed involved.
How about this? How about boxing? Very close to being extinct in the state of New York. A couple of weeks ago, we knew that Joe DeGuardia and Star Boxing canceled their remaining shows that were scheduled for to take place in the state of New York. Well, it was announced over the weekend that Lou DiBella of DiBella Entertainment canceled his final shows that he had slated in New York due to the same reasons as Star Boxing, the current insurance laws that require $1 million additional insurance per fighter in the event of a future head trauma or repercussions from a fight. And I really think that it's ridiculous, you know, and the fact that the UFC is allowed to participate without this policy in place for them is a bit confusing as well. You know, how do you pass a law when there's no insurance company that even writes that?
Well, you know, here's the thing, Bill. It's almost like a given because, you know, these symptoms and this pugilistic dementia and all of these things, they can take place later on, and it's not really which fight can you pinpoint where this happened, because it's the cumulative blows through the years that do take its toll. And you know, it's like if you have a cracked egg, it's not really just cracked, but next time it falls or rolls, it's going to crack in half and the yolk's going to spill. So
Just ask just ask Humpty Dumpty about that.
it's you're pisser. It's the Humpty Dumpty syndrome.
It is the Humpty
That's what
Dumpty
people
syndrome.
listen to mention.
I
the
mean,
Humpty Dumpty.
you could try to tape it back, but you're still gonna have a crack in there.
But the bottom line is, it is a sad situation, and now you're seeing it. Droves football players coming out of the woodwork. Now I will tell you, there's a world heavyweight champion. He's a good friend of mine, and I know him well. And he told me, I fought for the old Army boxing team. He fought for the old Army boxing team, and you guys could come back and say, hey, guess what? I suffered some head trauma when I was fighting the All Army boxing team. I want to collect some disability from the Army. I mean, these are the things that you could do. You never know where it's going to take place. So for a fighter to be insured, it's almost a guaranteed claim that is going to happen, if not immediately after the fight, maybe a decade from now. So what insurance companies are going to want to take on that potential liability?
I know, and then the amount of fighting that would go on to see if the claim is justified or not. I mean, you're right. Every fighter that suffers a knockout or something will want to try to cash in. It's an absurd law, and it's just another case of non-boxing people being involved, making rules and regulations that don't make any sense. I understand the backdrop of it, and the intent is it's well taken. It's a good intention.
Well taken. And let's face it, the intent's well taken. Nobody wants to be walking on their heels, winding up in a gutter later on in life, like too many of these fighters wind up. And it's a shame because, like I said, your cognizance, your mental abilities to have a productive life afterwards can be shattered, and it could have taken place decades before, just not coming out till later.
Well, the truth,
and I pray every day that I don't show these signs and have a productive life as I geared myself to.
Listen,
and I hope. Go ahead.
No, I was going to say the truth of the matter is it's the fighter's choice. No, it's not
It's
like
the fighter's choice. I knew this
sport.
going in. I told you this story many times. My father, when I said, Dad, I want to be a pro, I want to fight, I want to do this, he said, Sal, just got to watch out. Your friends might tease you one day. You might be punchy. You might do this. You might do that because people, And he would even talk about some of the older fighters and how they wound up later on in their lives, and so I knew, like I said, you make a decision. Is the prize worth the price?
Right.
And if the prize is worth the price for you, then go ahead, do what you want to do. You're an adult. You can make a decision and carry it on. But when you realize the prize is no longer worth the price, then you got to reassess and see what direction you want to go.
Joining us right now is my man Dax Conan. And Dax, what do you think, man? Now DiBella cancels his shows. It's not looking good for us in the state of New York, is it?
No, and we knew this was going to happen. I was speaking to somebody the other day who was asking me, I hope this doesn't mean that my friend who's going to make his pro debut in Rochester in a couple of weeks isn't going to fight. I said, listen, even if you are a big-time promoter, you have to understand that to put this $2 million up means you have to have more than just that $2 million, because the slightest mishap can cost you money. You're not going to make any money off these cards.
Yeah, but it's $1 million per fighter. So if you have six, so if you have, and it's an insurance, so you're not putting up, but it's still, there's no writers. There's no insurance companies that have any writers for it. That, you know what I'm saying? There's no insurance company that's willing to take on that risk.
Right, and that's what I was trying to explain to them. There's no way that these small promotion companies can ever handle it. And as far as these bigger promoters, when they can make money, a guy like Lou DiBella, who in all reality you have to credit him for, being the New York State promoter in terms of the quantity of cards and maybe even quality of cards. He can just as easily take his cards up to Connecticut, whether it be the Turning Stone, whether it be a Foxwoods or the Mohegan Sun, and it's really not much more of a drive. In fact, I believe from New York, it's closer than the Turning Stone is up in Verona. So he can do that and still make his money and still have the fans not only from New York, but the ones that travel from New England to come down there. So, everybody, the only people that are losing is New York State. And it's not going to last long. Believe me, Eric Bentley's not going to last long. In his position, the people that I know that are also, kind of in that, little circle with him, they're not too happy with him. So this guy this isn't going to last long whatsoever. Give it a couple months, and everything's going to change around. I'm positive on it.
Well, Eric Bentley was appointed when Dave Berlin got axed, and Eric Bentley is not a boxing guy. He was a medical guy, and then he was moved as an assistant to David Berlin, and all of a sudden he's now the acting. They have their title now. It's not commissioner. It's chief executive director or whatever. So, yeah, I agree with you there. Hey, I know you got a bunch of stuff to talk about, but just before you do, I know you're a fan like me of Demetrius Andrade, and I know, like myself, you have followed his career, and we both have seen basically this guy, who's a wealth of talent, be put on the shelf, and this guy's being wasted. I talked earlier, I don't know if you had a chance to listen to the show before you came on, but, I blame 99% of this guy's career stuck in quicksand on his two promoters, his co-promoters, Joe DeGuardia of Star Boxing and Artie Puello of Banner Promotions. And once again, the truth comes out about this Jack Colque fight, despite them saying that they had their contract signed, they don't know what's going on. And now we find out that once again, this is not the first time. This is the second time that this has happened, where they don't respond quick enough in a timely manner. He was stripped of his WBO title for the same reasons. These guys were out there trying to solidify a fight with a WBC or WBO champion, even though they had the fight already set with Jack Colque. To me, Dax, it's a clear case of greed on Star and Banner Promotions parts. What do you think? You're closer to the situation than most. What do you think about what's going on, and how's this going to impact Demetrius?
Well, I always go back to the night that Miguel Cotto and Floyd Mayweather had fought on the pay-per-view, and I was up at the Mohegan Sun, and that was the night where ESPN had a special of Friday night fights on a Saturday, and afterwards, everybody who was there in attendance, mainly the ticket buyers, were able to watch the pay-per-view between Cotto and Mayweather on the big screen above. And that night, Andrade was facing Rudy Cisneros, and he goes in, he blows out Cisneros as expected, and I was leaning on the apron, and I just shook my head. And his corner looks at me and he goes, "What? You don't like that?" And I just said, "Come on, man. You know what the issue is." And his corner man just shook his head and he goes, "If somebody would just pay us." And I understood totally what he meant by that. And you hit it on the head early on. Bad promotion company, bad contract that he was in with. Same thing with Chris Algieri. Chris Algieri landed the biggest fight of his career. Whether he lost, doesn't matter. It was such a high-profile opportunity for him, and he almost blew it again because he did business with the same type of circle of people that Demetrius does business with, where Chris actually almost blew the Manny Pacquiao fight because he was making these outrageous demands. And this just seems to be this little circle of not only the promotion people that they're in, but the people that they're around, and you hit it on the head all the time. It's this mentality, maybe not so much of the fighters, but those that are surrounding them are supposed to be looking out for their best interest. As you say, greed. Everybody thinks that every fighter is supposed to get these millions upon millions upon millions, but meanwhile what they're doing is they're really hurting these people that are supposed to be their friends, supposed to have the best interest in, and, more or less, just to end it, the only people, in my honest opinion, whose interest they're worried about is their own.
Exactly. And it's a shame because, this guy, I mean, for the most part, his best years are being pissed away. I mean,
and that was going to be my next thing. These people who are doing this, Bill, don't realize a fighter's prime years are short.
But they don't care. What you got is you got. Listen, Joe DeGuardia, I guess he's fastly not going to become too big of a fan of me, but the truth of the matter is you mentioned Chris Algieri. You can also mention any of his other fighters, and the same can be said with Artie Puello and Banner. You know, he invested money in that tournament, and then what? You know, the fighters go nowhere because they're all trying to get the big fight. They want it promoted by someone else. You know, most big-time promoters try to get the promotional rights to promote their fighters. You know, over in Eddie Hearn over in England, he does it. Sauerland does it. Golden Boy does it. You know, these guys, they try. Bob Arum, they try to secure the fights. You know, the promotional rights, and then try to make the maximum. When you look at Banner and Star Boxing, they're the complete opposite. They build up their fighters, and you know, you mentioned DeBella, but Joe DeGuardia puts a lot of shows on, or used to put a lot of shows on in New York, but not one of them are competitive. They're all building up his fighters to get the records, and they hope that investment on those shows will garner an opportunity to make a big payday where they can bring a fighter to make a chunk of change where they get a big percentage. Now remember, Demetrius Andrade and Chris Algieri had to give up. And Chris Algieri put his foot down, but Artie Puello and Joe DeGuardia at one point were both demanding their 30%. So you add the two 30% together, that's 60% of the fighter's purse before he's even paid for trainers or anything. Now I know they
absolutely. There's no debating on that. It's just, you know, the bad decision making all the way around.
Yeah, well, it's a shame.
From day one, the bad decision making, not only, you know, what the promoters are doing to the fighters, but those around who say, you know, they're helping the fighters out, whether or not it's people that are being paid or their friends, their family. Nobody's helping these fighters do anything.
I just wonder why, after the whole stagnant career of Demetrius Andrade, the way it's been since he signed, why the hell would he re-sign with these two guys? He did it again. And remember, when he first hit the scene as a pro, when he turned pro, he was only with Joe DeGuardia and Star Boxing. You know, because he won a fight, the part of the deal was that Banner, you know, gained some co-promotional rights with him. But then he re-upped with them earlier this year, re-upped with both. You know, right. So I don't get it. I don't get it. But anyway, what do you got cooking for us, brother?
Well, speaking of Golden Boy Promotions, a lot of people have been talking about Oscar De La Hoya's recent comment on 2016 has sucked for boxing. Yeah, Oscar, guess what? You have been one of the major factors why 2016 has sucked for boxing. Key factor, the main reason right there, the biggest fight of the year everybody wanted to see, bigger than Ward and Kovalev, bigger than Pacquiao and Vargas, is Triple G and Canelo. Plus, the one heavyweight fans in the U.S. and fans everywhere were really excited for, really talking about outside of Anthony Joshua, was the Cuban Luis Ortiz. Oscar, you failed there again. You teased fans a little bit with the Jennings fight at the end of 2015, and what happens? You put him in there with Tony Thompson, the guy who will fight anybody. That's no knock on Tony Thompson, but he's an aged fighter. Nothing big came out of that. Now what happens is Luis Ortiz is across seas. He's with Matchroom Boxing, who seems to be taking over the whole entire heavyweight division in their roster. Number two, it seems to be a little bit suspicious, not in a bad way, but I've been talking to some people that the fact Claressa Shields is making her pro debut on the undercard of Kovalev and Ward. At first, that card really wasn't being talked about. Now I'm starting to hear a little bit more people talk about the fact Claressa's going to be on that card. People that usually don't give any attention to female boxing or care about it whatsoever. I am starting to question, and a few others are starting to question, is this sort of a pressure situation for boxing? The UFC, boxing's biggest competitor, the number one MMA brand, has two ladies right now that are their main attractions. It has everybody, including boxing fans, talking about them, and that's Ronda Rousey and Chris Cyborg. How does that make boxing and its promoters look when its biggest rival can place two women that in boxing these promoters worldwide seem to pay no attention to, but this company right here has two women at the forefront making millions and millions and millions of dollars off of them. But meanwhile, you have a two-time Olympic gold medalist back-to-back. She made history, the only one in the United States, and you can barely get her any attention. So this right here, if they don't do something with Claressa Shields, it really tells you exactly what's wrong with boxing. They're just not promoting, as you stated before with Andrade. They're greedy because there's no reason why this girl right here should not be a superstar. In my opinion, and a lot of people's opinions, Bill, they're going to get her 1 or 2 fights. She won't have any opponents. And by this time next year, Clarissa Shields is going to be forgotten about. And boxing, as a professional, may be the biggest mistake she's ever made.
I think you're right. I think you're 100% right. I think she should have stayed as an amateur. She could have went to the Olympics again and most likely win another gold medal. The problem she's going to have in boxing as a pro, number one, you seem to have really taken the sword, so to speak, and flag for women's boxing. And although I was a big advocate of it for a long, long time, it's not there. There's just not the interest. And poor Clarissa Shields, who's a talented fighter, is not going to have any dance partners. She's going to end up winning a title after 4 or 5 fights because there's no opposition for her, and it's going to actually slow her career down. She's never going to make the money she could have made by staying as a superstar Olympian athlete, in my opinion. So I agree with you. One thing I do want to say, just to comment on your Oscar De La Hoya comment, is, 2016, we've all been pretty critical. Sal and I find ourselves being critical on a daily basis, but I will say this, and I'm critical of the PBC, but I will say this, thank God for the PBC in 2016, Dax, because of the fact that the PBC, even though we got a lot of showcase and uncompetitive fights, we did get a couple of the 2 top fights this year thanks to the PBC. We had the Porter Thurman fight, and of course Santa Cruz and Carl Frampton, which we're going to see the rematch on. So those fights were competitive. They were putting 2 top fighters against each other, something that Oscar and Golden Boy Promotions, and Top Rank for that matter, have not done. The greed has been the killer of this sport for 200 years, and it's continuing at a faster rate, and that's why we're in the trouble we're in.
Without question. Terence Crawford, speaking about him earlier on, a lot of people have been giving him, the S word, sort of say, be kind of polite here on a Monday morning, about the fact, more than likely John Molina Jr. is going to be his next opponent. But something, what people don't understand is Terence Crawford is having a hard time getting fights. People want so much money to fight him because he has the pound-for-pound curse. Every fighter, once they reach a certain level, all the opponents, whether they're champions or not, they want mega dollars to face that guy, whether it doesn't matter if it's a pay-per-view, especially when you see that guy dismantle several undefeated champions. Now, out there, Amir Imam, somebody who I've known since he was a kid, from the circuit up in the Capital District. He lost to Adrian Granados in an upset not too long ago. Now he's out there doing what all these fighters are doing and calling out all these guys on social media, why don't you fight me? He's been very disrespectful to Terence Crawford and Terence Crawford's career and choice of opponents. In fact, he had stated something to the effect of, boy, why don't you fight me? Are you scared? You're ducking me. Now, Amir Imam, I don't know what's going through his mind. I don't know why Don King isn't getting him any opponents. But truth of the matter is, Terence Crawford said something that made a lot of sense. I went to the UK. I was fighting pretty much for pennies on people's home turf to get where I am. And since I have been, I haven't taken an easy fight except for Hank Lundy. What more do you guys want from me? John Molina is no easy out. You'll outbox him, but I promise you, he's no easy out, and John Molina can upset just about anybody. I don't know what's going through Amir Imam's mind. Amir Imam has no business calling out Terence Crawford. This is the type of guy that, he as we stated before, Bill, who's doing the thinking for this kid? Because what can happen here is he can end up being a showcase opponent, and he would be a showcase opponent for a Terence Crawford, and that's the type of thing that would take a kid like Amir Imam and just ruin his whole career.
Well, let's look at the facts. The truth of the matter is that he signed with Don King. Don King, listen, Don King, I know him personally. I've always been a fan. I try to speak as positively about him as can, but his best days are well behind him. He doesn't have the connections anymore. He doesn't have the juice to make these big fights, and it just like the fight between Berman Stavern and Povetkin. I got offers coming in from all over the world. Well, how come the fight hasn't even been announced yet? How come the date and location? Because it's all BS. And the truth of the matter is Amir Aman is under the Don King banner. Don King can't keep the guy busy. He just can't. So Amir Aman is, I think it sounds to me like they've taken matters in their own hand. I'm talking about Team Aman, and they're trying to get a payday. The only thing I agree with you 100%, and the only reason why I could see them trying to go after Terence Crawford is for the payday. Because if I was Amir Aman and I was his team, they gave him a layup fight recently to get him a W. I'd look for one more fight like that, so you can have two W's and put that upset loss a couple of fights behind him, and then try to get him another high-profile fight, maybe overseas. But I agree with you 100%. In the ring with Terence Crawford would be a disaster, and Terence Crawford needs to come up with a big name. I don't think that an easy fight for Terence Crawford will do him any justice, especially on the heels of a really piss-poor pay-per-view number event that took place in his last fight. I think it should be damage control for Terence Crawford right now. I think they should get a good opponent and put it on regular cable network and get him back to where we thought he was going, in the same direction. He took that. He jumped over a spot, it seemed, and I think he needs to do some damage control.
No, he doesn't want an easy fight. He wants to fight the best. But, point of the matter is, I can't blame him because he has had such a tough schedule. Two more things. Juan Manuel Lopez, and you guys spoke about this earlier on, this weekend, I don't know what is going through his mind where he thinks that he should continue his career. He didn't look very good this weekend. The only reason why either Lopez or Vasquez Jr. remained in the fight that long is because they were against each other. Against any of the top 5 guys, that fight would have ended a lot sooner. What really has me questioning the exact the mindset of Lopez and what he has left is not the fact he called out Abner Maris, but the fact he said he wants another shot at Orlando Salido. Again, who's advising this kid? Why, in your right mind, we say that, fighters duck guys, we need fighters who fight, we need guys who are going to face the best, we need guys who are going to challenge themselves, and absolutely we need that. But you know something? Going in there against Orlando Salido is not the best of ideas. Orlando Salido is a guy, Bill, that is truly, you say this all the time, a craftsman. Guys who really, really, really just go in there and do their job. This is a guy here who's never had an easy fight. Nobody can ever say they've had an easy fight against him. Orlando Salido is a guy who can be outboxed. He's a guy who can be outworked. Some guys will knock an opponent out with one punch, separate them from their senses. Orlando Salido, he's not one of those guys. But there are guys out there who's going to beat you up from start to finish by any means necessary. Orlando Salido is one of those guys. Now, you ask and you look back on his career, Yuriorkis Gamboa, he was never the same after his win over Orlando Salido. Lomachenko learned a lesson fighting Orlando Salido. Look at his career. Mikey Garcia, he was a guy that beat Salido, but you know what? Salido had him hurt. He fought him dirty. Now, when you're damaged goods like Juan Manuel Lopez, Juan Manuel Lopez, you don't want to sit there and go in there against an Orlando Salido. If anybody licenses that, I swear there should be an investigation. This kid is looking for suicide.
Yeah, Juan, I think that, in lieu of what happened in his last several fights, devastating knockout losses, I'm shocked that they approved him to fight again. And I don't think he's the same. I just don't think he's the same guy. I think that the Puerto Rican fans put a lot of pressure on him. He was their hero, and all of a sudden they kicked him to the curb after his loss. I think that put a lot of pressure on him mentally. The fact that he got his brain scrambled in there with the knockout losses, devastating knockout losses. And remember, those knockout losses he took a lot of punishment before he was down. He went down several times in a couple of those fights. I don't know I don't know if he would pass a head scan in the States, to be honest with you. But
it depends on where it is. He might. And the thing about fighting for peanuts, if Orlando Salido feels that he's disrespected, Orlando Salido would take that fight for a plane ticket and a bowl of nachos.
You're right. You're right. Orlando Salido's the last guy he should be calling out. If anybody, the Yuriorkis Gamboa, like that Joel suggested earlier, I would like that fight because both, the winner maybe gets another shot, the loser gets a payday, and it should be over. But quite honestly, Juanma, he should take this win and use it as the end. Coach is saying he's broke. It's a shame, man. It's a shame.
The last thing before I go, it's something that's bothered me for years. I know we spoke about this off air, and it's just ever since it happened, it really just pestered me. Vernon Forrest was a great guy. He was a great fighter. Everybody knows his fights with Shane Mosley. What a lot of people don't know is that Vernon Forrest was actually an avoided fighter, which is why he never really got into that mix with the De La Hoyas and the Forrest, and the Mosleys and the Ike Cortez a lot sooner. But back in December of 2000. And, back in December of 2009, he was murdered. He was shot in the back by Sharman Sinkfield. Three men, DeMario Cruz, Jaquante Ware, and Sharman Sinkfield, they robbed him at gunpoint while he's putting air in his tire. His godson was in the store buying some candy and drinks. Cruz and Ware were convicted in 2011, 2012, and sentenced to life. Finally, after 7 years, the trigger man, Sharman Sinkfield, was sentenced and convicted to life. Sinkfield, after Forrest chased Cruz, Ware, and Sinkfield down for his possessions and retained them, as he turned around to walk away, Sharman Sinkfield shot him in the back 7 times. 7 times he shot the man in the back. The footage of Sharman Sinkfield in the courtroom as they were talking about and depicting what they were going to do after his sentencing, after his conviction of guilty, whether or not he was going to get life or murder, he had an act to try and look remorseful, to try and act as though he was sorry for what he did. Yet here we are, for all these 7 years, you were never sorry. For all these 7 years, you never turned yourself in, you never mentioned anything. Vernon Forrest's mother, Mildred, because of what she said in that courtroom, she missed her son. Part of her died with him that day, but she did not want death for Sharman Sinkfield. She did not want him to sit there and his family to suffer what she suffered, even though the prosecutor wanted death, and even though many on the jury wanted death. It was Vernon Forrest's mother, Mildred, that didn't ask for death, and the only reason why Sharman Sinkfield didn't get death. I hope every day he sits in that prison cell, in that little 8x10 cell, and rots, and he looked at his reflection in the toilet, or he's looking in his little mirror, he understands that it's because of Mildred Forrest that she said, do not put him to death. I do not want his mother to feel the same way I did when he killed my child. A woman who said, don't put this man to death, who shot her son in the back 7 times like a coward every single day, Bill. I hope he remembers that she gave him better than he gave her son.
I tell you the truth, that's probably a worse sentence to live the rest of your life behind bars. And I feel that Vernon Forrest's mom is a very strong person. Obviously, she believes in a superior power, because that's the only thing that would, in my opinion anyway, that would justify her being so lenient in a way, But hey, more power to her, strong woman, and I applaud her for that. That's for sure. I'm glad you shared that.
And unlike Sharman Sinkfield, she wasn't a coward because she said it while looking right at him, unlike what he did to her son, shooting him in the back.
The only thing is, I wish that those guys that get spared do have to sit in an 8x10 cell with nothing. But in a lot of cases, they have more rights and freedoms than they would if they had to get a real job outside of prison, and that's the sad truth of it. But hopefully,
wouldn't it be nice if you can get a guy like him, and then you can sit there and just put him in a cell, or go ahead. As for some rest and relaxation, you get him out there, and you can be a sparring partner for a Triple G or a Luis Ortiz or somebody like that. But you can only be the sparring partner on the days they're in a really bad mood.
No, I would put them in a jail cell and limit them to bread and water for the rest of their life. The real terrible criminals that. And everybody fights for their rights, but they put themselves in a position where they should be taken, some of their rights should be taken away as punishment, But anyway, that's a whole nother story and a whole nother show. But Dax, I appreciate your insight on that stuff and your passion, which clearly comes out. And I know all of our listeners appreciate it, but just from me to you, I appreciate it a lot, my man. So hopefully we can get some more from you later in the week. We are not doing a show tomorrow, but we will be back for the rest of the week, and you got to keep us posted on social media. We got Manny Pacquiao coming up this weekend, a big fight for him. So hopefully we could talk a lot about that, and we'll be doing a post-fight show after that fight too. So we got a lot of stuff coming up this week, man.
November's going to be the best month of the year for boxing so far, or at least schedule-wise. Let's hope the schedule actually delivers in terms of action.
Well, we got some good ones. We got this one, and we got the Kovalev and Ward fight coming up after that. So yeah, we got some stuff in the works, man.
Absolutely.
All right,
guys.
Dax.
I'll talk to you this week.
All right, brother.
Dax, take care, Dax. Good stuff.
Wow, that was pretty wild about Vernon Forrest's mom sparing, or at least voting to spare, the death penalty for her son's murderer. So it takes a strong person to do that, Sal.
Yes, it sure does. I don't ever want to be in that position, but I'll tell you what, on either end. But boy, oh boy, that takes a strong person to look at that and look at it that way.
Hey, two quick things. One, just to further, I just can't get past this Demetrius Andrade situation, and I really feel for him because I honestly believe that he is the best junior middleweight in the world today, even over your boy Canelo Alvarez. I really think that this guy, his talent is being wasted due to the greed of his dual promoters. If you're this guy, or if you're a manager for this guy, or if you're a promoter, which I'm trying to get you to do, what would you do? I mean, would you try to buy out the contracts? Would you try to, sue them for not looking out for your best interest? I mean, that's probably the route I would take, because I think that there's enough case material for a case where you could say, hey, listen, here we had this contract, they're dragging their feet. They're going to say they were trying to better it, but they didn't act in a professional manner with a contract on the table. To me, that seems like enough juice anyway for a lawsuit that claims that they're in breach of contract. They're not looking out for his best interest. What do you think?
Well, I agree with you. I mean, when you align yourself with a team, you're supposed to have that team look out for your best interest and look what you could do to propel and promote your career in a positive, productive fashion. And if your team is not doing that according to what you feel is appropriate, yeah, definitely. I think it opens up a lot of doors to look at who's going to assume the liability if you cross a couple stumbling blocks and stuff. Yeah, it's a good point, but I'll tell you, it always comes back to the greed.
Yeah, and it's unfortunate. It's been a long-lasting problem in this sport, and it's trying to kill it. It really is. But Manny Pacquiao, big fight. We'll be talking more about him as the week goes on. And his fight with Jessie Vargas, what I think, honestly, at the stage Manny Pacquiao is in right now with his career and all of his other stuff going on in his life on a daily basis, I really think this is a 50-50 fight, Sal. I really do. This is no layup for Manny.
It's no layup for Manny. And like I said, whether you're a fan of Manny or not, it's a must-win for him. And because if he doesn't look good, if he doesn't leave the ring with his hand up in the air, there is no Mayweather fight. There is no other real fight of significant value that you could bring Manny back for. This is his make or break fight. And it's a shame because, like I said, Manny's done a lot. He's been a credit to the game. He's done everything else. And, I wasn't so impressed with any performance on any level by any fighter with the fight he had against Mayweather. But, I was less impressed with Manny than I was more impressed with Mayweather. But the bottom line is, does it deserve a rematch? Well, we'll see. We're going to see if Manny could sum up what he has in the tank and do a good fight. But I think Vargas is in this fight 100%. And, may the best man win. We'll see.
Well, remember this, and you keep forgetting, and I think a lot of other people do. Manny Pacquiao had the lackluster performance against Floyd Mayweather. He used the shoulder as an excuse, which I never like to use, but it is what it is. But after his shoulder so-called healed, he came back and fought not a tune-up fight, not some punching bag, but he fought Timothy Bradley. And Timothy
Yeah.
Bradley is arguably a top pound-for-pound fighter, I think. I think he's one of the most underrated fighters in the sport today. And he beat Timothy Bradley convincingly. He fights that fight. And then he's fighting a 50-50 fight against Jessie Vargas this weekend. I think if anybody earned a shot at Mayweather again, or at least a rematch, I think it's Manny Pacquiao. Nothing for nothing.
I agree.
Yeah, but Floyd can't say that since that fight, and we could say what we want. We could say Floyd made him look foolish. We could say Floyd dominated. We could say all those things, and we could leave out the shoulder because I don't like to use that as an excuse. But then again, who did Floyd fight after that? He picks a layup.
Right.
Come on. No, I think Manny Pacquiao clearly gets back where he needs to be in terms of public perception. Should he beat Jessie Vargas and beat him convincingly on Saturday? A quick question: Gene Tunney is our blast from the past this week. The Fighting Marine. This is a guy that's virtually forgotten. And, one of the things about Gene Tunney is he's actually the first world heavyweight champion to retire as a champion with the belt and never come back in the ring. Do you think some of our viewers and listeners are going to be surprised at what we tell them about Gene Tunney and his career?
Well, I'll tell you why. The first time I heard of Gene Tunney was from a family friend who was just such a fight advocate and taught me a lot. And Phil Corletta that I remember so well, and he was the first one to talk about Gene Fulmer to me. He was the first one to talk about Gene Tunney, Harry Greb. He talked about all these great fighters that what they did and what they accomplished and what was their strong points, and so that was a great education there. But Gene Tunney, a Fighting Marine, yeah, this is something that a lot of people don't know. So it's gonna be a good thing to listen to. I think the blast from the past there. He's definitely warrants it. What a great fighter he was and competitor, and yeah, that's good stuff.
Funny thing is people were talking that Harry Greb wasn't really an all-time great because they can't, some of the younger fans because they can't watch any of his video. Well, Harry Greb is the only guy to ever beat Gene Tunney.
Is that funny? Wow.
And he was a middleweight. Gene Tunney was a heavyweight, so
that's funny. Hey, can I just mention, just for we don't have to expand too much on it, but I think yesterday marked the 40th anniversary of the Ali Foreman fight that took place in Zaire, Africa. And boy, those were battling heavyweights back then, I'll tell you what. And the sport definitely thirsts for some of that kind of competitive battles, and it was just amazing. I don't know if you want to talk about it at all, where were you, Bill, when you where you saw that fight?
Where did I see that fight? I watched it on closed circuit, which we used to call closed circuit.
That's exactly what I did. Yes.
And I remember because people got to remember that George Foreman was a vicious killer.
Vicious, a Sonny Liston persona.
Oh yeah.
And an Adonis built like a Hercules.
Big guy, and he wasn't the friendly cheeseburger eating guy that came back and won a title again at 40 years old. No, this was a vicious killer, and the game plan that Muhammad Ali put in play that night, no one knew about except for him. Even Angelo Dundee,
I was in tears.
The rope-a-dope, he called it later, and but it was effective because George Foreman punched himself out, and when you watch that knockout, it reminded me of the old Mike Tyson punch-out game when a fighter got knocked out. He kind of spun around and crashed to the canvas, and he was down. And it wasn't a powerful punch that ended the night for George Foreman. From Muhammad Ali. It was an accumulation added to the fact that George Foreman was physically exhausted. Talk about being gassed. He was gassed. And the other thing, too, was that the fan base in Zaire was 100% behind Ali. Ali had gone there, and
he was like a politician.
He was.
Went there. He won the hearts.
He was, and that was putting a big burden on Foreman. Foreman was scared. He was threatened for his life and all of these things. Yeah. And there was a lot of stuff going up to it. But definitely Foreman was never the same fighter again in that era. And then when he came back, he took on a different role and was successful. But great 40 years. Wow, time does fly.
Years. Yeah, you and I were younger.
Yeah, we were young.
Let me tell you, and I just remember, as you said, you look at it, talk about having a plan A and a plan B. You know, I hate to keep going on expanding on it, but Muhammad Ali looked at George Foreman. Was it true that George Foreman, like we were saying, this guy was looked at as invincible? He was an Adonis. He was a Herculean, he's the same guy that lifted Joe Frazier off his feet with an uppercut. And then he never went past 7 rounds, I believe. Correct me if I'm wrong. And that was part of the strategy that Muhammad Ali wanted to utilize. Say, hey, I'm gonna let this guy punch himself out on my body and my head with me in the corner on the ropes, and because I know after 7 rounds he's gonna have nothing left in the tank.
He was hoping,
and sure enough, he was hoping.
Yeah.
That was a hell of a hypothesis to build your career on and take all that punishment.
and let me tell you another thing. People, Muhammad. I'll tell you another thing. Muhammad Ali never looked like he was in top physical condition. He wasn't a Ron Lyle or even George Foreman. But think of the condition that he had to be in to let a power puncher like George Foreman beat on his midsection as much as he did, and keeping in mind that not all the punches landed on the ribs; they were landing on his elbows and his arms, and for him to still be able to come back and even muster up punches to put Foreman out is incredible. But
incredible. And I looked at that tape dozens of times, and I think it was an effective 8-round. 8-punch combination or so that just, as you said, left George Foreman spinning in bewilderment and like just falling as a shock. Like, where did all this come from? Because the first half of that eighth round, he was doing his thing. He was on the ropes. Muhammad Ali was there, and Foreman was teeing off on him, and all of a sudden, Muhammad Ali spun him into the ropes, and boom, 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 put an 8-punch combination together, and bam, Foreman went down, and he had a look of bewilderment on his face, and it was like, wow, what the hell just happened?
Well, he did it in the middle of the ring. He spun around. He looked like Soda Popinski going down. I mean, anyway, hey, great segue, because on this day, Halloween, October 31st, in 1992, Lennox Lewis knocks out Razor Ruddock in the second round in London. He was then subsequently awarded the WBC World Heavyweight title, and I believe that's when Riddick Bowe threw it in the trash can. But anyway, on this day in 1971, Koichi Ojama wins a 15-round decision over Carmelo Bassi to win the World Junior Middleweight title, took place in Tokyo. On this day in 1992, Crisanto Espeña knocks out Meldrick Taylor in the 8th round to win the WBA World Welterweight title, took place in London. On this day in 1999, Jong Kwan Bak wins a 12-round decision over Lavika Sim to win the WBA World Junior Lightweight title, took place in Korea. On this day in 1904, Joe Gans, the late great Joe Gans, retains his World Lightweight title via a 5th-round DQ win over Jimmy Britt. Britt dropped Gans 4 times, and the last one, he hit Gans while he was still down and was disqualified to give Gans the win. And finally, on this day, October 31st in 1941, Sugar Ray Robinson, the best ever, wins a 10-round decision over Fritzy Zivik to improve to 26-0. This was early in Sugar Ray Robinson's career when he was a welterweight. A lot of people look at him as a middleweight, but he was a welterweight. He improved to 26-0 in their fight, in the welterweight fight that took place at Madison Square Garden on this day, October 31st, in 1941. Hey, Sal, like I said, we won't be here tomorrow, but we will be back on Wednesday. Any final thoughts before we wrap it up here?
Well, yeah, you can cut me off if I go too deep in any one area I shouldn't, but we had another fight that broke out over this weekend. It looks like the Department of Justice and the FBI might be at different ends of what's going on. And then we got the big fight next Tuesday, Hillary Clinton versus Donald Trump. We'll see who wins there.
Yeah, it's a nail biter. They're both. It's when they say we got 2 terrible choices, we're gonna have to take the lesser of 2 evils. Me personally, I'd like to go with the change because if you go with the criminal, you're going to have things going along as they are. And we witnessed it last week when one of our very own, my man Mike from Michigan, called. He lost his job. I've known, have heard over the last 10 days, so many people have lost really good jobs that they've held for a long time. A friend of mine was with a newspaper for 29 years, and she lost her job. So, I mean, the unemployment rates that are being publicized are not true. People don't realize that after you're done collecting unemployment for your term, you're not being counted as unemployed anymore, even though you don't have a job. So, I mean, the economy is in terrible condition, and we need some kind of change, right or wrong. We need a change for at least the next 4 years, and maybe we can get back on track. But we'll see. Hopefully, the most popular candidate will win. I don't want to see any BS happen where popular vote votes one way and the election goes another. I mean, all I could say to everyone is get out there and vote, and the best person will win the job. That's all we can say, right?
Well, that's all we can hope for. It's just a little disheartening when you're already hearing other reports of this person registering 40 deceased people to vote and all this. Yeah, it puts a real tarnish on the whole system of what we have as a democracy. So
plus, there's already several million early votes in, right?
Yeah, it's true, and I think some of the stats where a lot of the early votes might be leaning towards Clinton, but of course, what's happened since then supposedly has changed a little bit of the landscape. So people that are going to vote on Tuesday, may have another thought behind their poll.
Well, all I know is if Trump gets in, just whatever they do, don't give him the button. Don't let him get near the button. That's all I'm saying. But anyway, hey Sal, I will miss coming on tomorrow, but we will be back better than ever on Wednesday morning. So I tell everyone, make sure you tune in Wednesday morning, same bat time, same bat channel. Until then, ciao, baby.